Okay, just going to run through pulling a pump down. Two types of motors, but one pump complete today. We'll go through a list of tools first. Battery drill with your screw connection. What we have here is a 5mm Allen key for the newer style pumps with the Allen key bolts. 13mm ratchet spanner, 3.5mm Allen key drive wrench, flathead screwdriver, multi-grips, a larger screwdriver, a hammer. For the bearing side of things, always keep a marking pen on hand. You'll see why later when we get to pull the motor down. That one's an 11/16 drive, purely for my bearing puller. Circlip remover. I use a plug socket, a piece of pipe with a similar diameter of about 15mm will do the same trick. A rubber mallet, some lube, and a marking pen. 8mm driver for the through bolts. Okay, Viron XT pump. What we're going to do is pull this pump down completely today, right down to the bearing in the motor. So what we do firstly is we need to get rid of the motor cowl. 2 screws at the back. That one will slide out. Pull the fairing off, clip down at the front, and 2 clips at the back. Removes the fairing like so. 3.5mm Allen key wrench. Removing the power supply, 1 at the front, 2 in the back. Like so. And we're going to take the volute off and get into the impeller. Okay, so now we're going to remove the volute. Get down into the impeller. We need our 5.5mm Allen key wrench. I use the cordless variety, but a manual wrench is fine. Three either side. The volute, shake normally sets him free. We're down into the impeller side of things. You want to take the diffuser off. Once again, your Phillips head driver. That gets him off. Down to the impeller. Okay, now we're down to the impeller. We need to remove the impeller to get the seal plate off. It's just something wide enough to get down into the groove of the impeller. Anti-clockwise, 1 quick hit. Spins off. Mechanical seal. Generally, I always change the seal on a pump when we're breaking it down. So if you need to, use your multi-grips to get him off to there. Always make sure that rubber boot has come off with it. As you'll find out if you go to put a new one on, it won't seed right down in there. So that side of the mechanical seal's off. Now we go to the side and just pop him out with the flathead screwdriver. Okay, removing the seal plate. 13mm ratchet spanner. give him a bump. Off he comes. The motor.
Good to go.
Okay, raw motor. Now we're going to get to the bearing. What you can do is you can use your seal plate up on its end, or alternatively, anything with a hole in it where that can sit down flat. Very important, so you don't damage the front of your shaft there. You can sit down seal plate like so. You need to remove the fan. Circlip pliers, 2 little holes. There, squeeze together. Off he comes. Flathead screwdriver into the shaft. Spin the fan as you go. Don't try and lift it all in one. Off he pops like so. 4 through bolts that bolt the motor together. That's an 8mm socket. Sometimes you'll find if they're a little bit close to the side of the motor, just your rubber mallet, just tap him down. This means when they've been tightened up, they've just warped a little bit into the motor. No big deal, but just tap him down like that, get him started, and off he comes. Now this being an AC motor, slightly different to the DC we're going to pull apart a little bit later on. These through bolts have washers on the end. Very important not to lose them. And you'll notice the yellow tape on them. It's to keep the noise down internally. Motor off your steel plate, sit him on a nice flat surface. Mallet, always rubber on the shaft. If you hit that with anything other than rubber and it mushrooms it, you won't get your fan back on. So, a couple of taps, and it comes. Okay.
You good?
Okay, so down to the armature, bearing and the front end shield. Have bearing guides there, or aligners. They need to be removed so we can get to that bearing. So Phillips head screwdriver, or battery drill. Screws out. Need to get the front end shield off. Upside down. Once again, rubber mallet only. We come down to the bearing. That stage, always check your back bearing. Generally it's the front one that we need to change because that's where we've had the water ingress. But it's always good to check that back bearing spinning freely too, because as you'll find, they're not that hard to do too at this stage. You're better off doing two. That one's nice and free. Front one needs to come off. Bearing removal. Let's use a bearing puller. Please don't try and do it without one. You will fail and you'll end up damaging that armature of the motor, which once that's happened, game over, replacement pump. So, open our bearing pullers. Stretch him over. Tighten up. When you tighten them up, a little tip is just to make sure that you're free of that circlip down there. That circlip's actually a guide to where the bearing goes down. Make sure that the legs of the bearing puller isn't clipped onto that circlip, otherwise you'll pull it off and damage it. So we stay on the sides. Tighten him up as much as you can by hand. His spanner. Generally takes a couple of good turns. ready to replace the bearing. So take our new bearing. Always check, even though they're brand new, things happen in transit, always check that that's spinning freely. Place him down, exactly the same place the last one left from. Put the old one back on top of the new one. And I even had another older bearing. The reason I use the older bearings is so nothing can interfere with that seal race. If we were to ding that in any way, that would ruin that bearing. So I use a couple of older bearings. There's no way you can go wrong then. Put your pipe or your socket on top, rubber again. Couple of hits down. Make sure you're down to that circlip that we talked about. Bearings down to that. The moment it's a tad short, we'll give it another hit. There we are, down there. Okay, they're a nice, strong surface. It's always recommendable. Whole bearings on top. Get to that stage and it's still a little bit short. Grab the metal hammer. What you want to do is you want to give that a tap around that ring there. Not too close to that thread, be mindful of that thread. But give that a tap around there. Let's see, we'll go home. And we're home. Okay, so we've got our bearing back into place into the front end shield. Need to put our bearing guides back on. You'll see they're actually notched out to take the notch of the clip. So sit him in there like so. Actually just get those started by finger tight to begin with. Like so, then just tighten them up with either the battery or your standard screwdriver, whatever you're comfortable with. They've just got to be done up nip tight. As you can see, the back of the guides are plastic, so over tightening will break those guides. Always give it a spin. Just make sure that it's nice and free and balanced. No noise. I'm going to put it back into the actual windings of the motor now. So you see that spring steel washer needs to sit right up into that back slot there. Very important. Now, like so, that takes the buffer of any lateral movement inside the motor. Make sure that's back into position. Then sit him down nice and flat and level. Check your drain points of your end shield to the bottom. Just slides in like so. As far as you can push him in, and then we take him back up onto our seal plate. So at that point there, rubber mallet, small tabs, there we go. And we'll see with these, they do have two little aligners. They're very hard to see with the paint over them, but you can see them there, 1 and 2. They are obviously to line up those sections there. So once you get it to that stage, you can tap that seal plate around to suit until it looks lined up. Remember that, back up onto your seal plate. Taps home. 3 bolts back. Mil wrench socket. I always like to go diagonally, just like you would if you're doing up the wheel nuts on a car, so the tension's even. And they don't need to be super tight. At that stage, make sure that it's spinning nice and freely. At that stage, if that was catching on anything or not spinning freely, then it'd be a problem internally. You'd need to pull the bolts back out and get back down to the bearing and check what was catching it. Once again, if without that clip, sometimes if that steel spring would have to fall out in the putting back together, then that would case to lock that up and you wouldn't be able to spin it that freely. Good. Okay, at that stage, we've checked for spinning freely. We can then put the fan back on. He just pushes on down as far as you can go. Circlip. Like that. I like to, once I've got that on there, just to check with a flathead screwdriver, push him down until he's clipped home. You heard the click there, that means it's down in that slot. That there means the fan can't come off, and everything inside's lined up nicely. Okay, so now putting the pump back together and back into our seal plate. 4 body bolts. Stage, sit him up on his foot. He's nice and level. Okay. Now fitting a new mechanical seal. Always check around the inside there, especially if you've used the seal plate as a helping hand when you've done the bearing. Always check around the bottom of the impeller as well. Ceramic side in first. Put him in as level as you can and just push with the thumbs until it's home. The carbon side is onto the impeller. Always use a little bit of, just the smallest bit just to get it sliding. Always that O-ring on first. Once we get to there, make sure that's springing back comfortably. Next step, I like to a little bit of spit or a little bit of moisture around the carbon. We're going to wind him on. We're going to lock him up and then we're going to take him off. What we're looking for here is a complete black circle around that ceramic section. If we're not seeing that, the pump will leak. You need to have that carbon and that ceramic pushing hard and tension on it all the time. That's the telltale sign. If you're not seeing that, then there's an issue. Could either be the seal plate's warped or your bolts in the seal plate bolts haven't been done up evenly. So recheck it, re-moisture it, put it back on until you've got that black circle. Don't go any further than this stage if you don't, because it will leak. Diffuser. These can go either way. What I do is I sit him on hand tight and I spin the back fan, make sure you're not hearing any grinding or any plastic noise. If you are, you can back the other way, try it there. If you're still hearing plastic noise, you need to take it off and check the front of the impeller and also check around here of the diffuser. Maybe a little bit of plastic or a little bit of grip that's got in there. It goes on. Phillips head driver. Okay, now we're going to put the volute back on, basically the pump back to running order. Check your O-ring around the outside once again for any little bits of grit or plastic or anything like that that might be in there. Sit him around, push him in, a little bit of lube. Like to go a little bit either side, helps lock the O-ring in, and then just lightly around the outside. So make sure he's back in position. Again, always best to do this on a nice flat surface. And with the volute, like so. I like to put my side bolts in first, because I feel that it locks the O-ring in. If the pump moves from there, the O-rings can't really go anywhere once those side bolts are in. So it's just everything hand tight for the moment. Hex wrench or your cordless. Once again, like a car wheel, I like to go the opposites. Volutes on. Once again, I'll check the fan at that stage. So if you need to, if you've missed something and you need to pull it back down, it's a lot easier to pull it back down at that stage before you get the power supply on top. So that's what we're going to fit now. Fitting the power supply. Your screws are still in there from when you undid it. It just slides on. You'll find that it will actually guide itself down, and just a firm push is all you need. Let's get that one till it's just tight. I like to just do that one tight first. What you'll find is it can pull if you do the front one down too tight first, it can actually lift the power supply up and the back bolts will tend to not grip when you go to tighten them. So just hand tight on the front one, get the back ones home, and come back to your front and snip him up. Fitting the cowl, the fairing. So this way I find is stand behind the pump. So you've got your two guides there for your fins on your motor. Line them up, must be on the same one. push him up there, spin him, side ones, like so. And at the back section, if you were to have a data cable running out to a Connect 10 or a chlorinator, fit him in there first, clip your data cable in your guide, and then on with the back cover, Phillips head screw. Pump complete, re-bearinged and ready for refitting.